All right, let's start this again. Good morning. This is Perry Wilkey with Major League Trading. It is Wednesday, October 10th, 2018. Looking back at the previous session, we really had an inside day. We did trade up above the previous day's range by 6.25 points, but really that was, nothing going on there. No real time, no real volume, nothing sticking up there. And if we look at all of the indexes, we can see that it played out in a very similar picture. So what we had there was all of them did trade above the previous day's high. The Dow was the one who had the fewest trades. You can see just a little bit of wick on one bar above the previous day's high. All the rest of them, the Nasdaq, the next fewest trades, right? The Russell, the ES probably had the most, but nothing really going on. No one traded below value area low, let alone got close to the previous day's low. So if we look at the initial balance study, which the initial balance is these solid gray lines top to bottom, most of them really stayed inside of their initial balance range. Sorry about that. Most of them stayed within the initial balance range and really didn't get anything going on above or below that range for the day. If we look at the bell-to-bell fibs and the internals, we can see we had a little bit of buying pressure early, represented by these green dots on the range chart below. And that really didn't have anything going below, right? So no continuation there. Come back down, drop down to the 61.8, come back up, couldn't go to targets. And if you look, we stayed within that opening range pretty much all day long for the ES, right? Nothing going on there. If we look at the NASDAQ, a little bit weaker on the internals, but nothing lower in price for the index. So just really chopping around in the same range, and going nowhere. So if we look at the Dow, minus 52 points close to close, minus 14 points open to close. We still have our winners and losers here. We still have, 3M minus 27 Dow points close to close. Caterpillar minus 26 close to close. And UTX minus 25 points close to close. So all these green stocks making up for it, right? Apple up 21 Dow points for the session. And if we look at the range, we can see where these reds are at the bottom of the range, closing at the bottom of the range. Had quite a few stocks closing at the bottom of the range. If we look at the darker green, or we can see that some stocks closing at the top end of the range. So it is still that stock pickers market and going back and forth. So something to keep in mind that there is, if you're playing individual stocks, there is definitely divergence between the stocks. There's definitely different groups, different stocks that are going. So it's not the rising tide lifts all boats, or the tide going out sinks all boats anymore. You're really getting discrepancies between them. If we look at the profile, what it looked like for the session, the blue is the overnight trading volume. The gray on top of that is the bell-to-bell trading volume. So really we can watch, once again, the point of control today for bias up or bias down, which we'll show that in just a second. But and the value area will be that's all you need to watch today. No other special markings for today. So if we look at the overnight trading, again, totally inside of the previous day's range. The Russell is the closest to going through the lows, right? The overnight low just slightly above yesterday's bell low. Overnight highs, the only one to trade outside of the value area on the overnight high is the Dow so far. And the Dow just barely traded below value area low on the overnight low. All the rest of them between value area low and yesterday's low for the overnight low. So let's look at the longer term levels. We'll start with the Dow. So looking at the Dow and where we've traded since this contract started, the Z8 contract, and rollover on September 13th. So going back down, up. So we're really right in this meaty distribution over here. We'll zoom in over here to this level. But, and I'll hide the profile so we can see the numbers a little bit cleaner. But really, 26,449 to 26,493. For me, that's the same support resistance line, and we're really just sitting there flirting on it right now. Going up some trades above it yesterday, some trades below it, but really just sitting there right on that meaty part of the node. So we've already tested down lower, so if we can break the resistance and go higher, there is a pretty clean window up to all the way from 26,578 to 26,613 that has potential for the day. And then now keep in mind the banks do report Friday morning before the opening bell, and we could just be in a holding pattern until that goes off. So I wouldn't expect really anything outside of this range. I'll go ahead and mark it off. So I would think 26,613 would be about the high, and to be honest with you, I think that 26,358, unless the internal starts screaming, selling, that this is going to be the range that we're going to be stuck in today and possibly tomorrow, and until they get broken, this is where I'm going to assume that we're going to play. So right now we're mid-range. There's nothing going on here for me until we either hit the bottom or the top of this. And I might be interested in participating maybe with some Nadex strikes, getting above 26,493 in the session with some decent internals. Playing for a strike probably in the lower third of this range to close above, and then probably scalping out of most of it. Let's look at the Russell next. The Russell by far is the weakest, right? So as we're sliding down here, I'll show you the profile. Then we'll turn it back off so we can read the numbers. But, this is where the meat of the distribution was, or is still for this contract, way above us. So this is a lot of overhead supply, and we're very far from it. So we keep, going down, flagging, breaking, flagging, breaking. So we've been in this area now. So we'll have to find out if this is just another flag that's going to break, or if we can finally get back up. So yesterday we were looking at some resistance above potentially, and that is right where we come in. So right around 1640.9 to 1645.7, this red box. You can see as soon as we hit it right around 10 a.m. Eastern yesterday, that's what just drove it back down. So the Russell has no conviction to the upside, and really I'm just watching it. I don't really want to participate going to the lower side after the flush that it's had. I'm just going to wait for signs of a bottom and signs of retracements that are holding and sequences that are holding to the upside for the Russell. The next trade to the Russell for me will be to the long side. I'm just going to wait until after the first group of people get paid, and I'll take the second ride on that train. Let's look at the NASDAQ. So very similar for the NASDAQ as the Russell, except for the Russell has a bottom that it's much farther from, almost a rejection bottle for here for the NASDAQ, and really just sitting in this node. So the NASDAQ really has, three real distributions you can look at. The distribution that goes up between these two purple lines, the distribution to this red line, and then you got some little subsets, but really the top end of this distribution then. So this is an area that there should be sellers whenever we get back up here above 76.09 or right at 76.09. I'll be watching that later on at trade. We will trade that again someday, and most likely before this contract is over. going back down and looking at, so what we were talking about yesterday, I'm trying to make this a little cleaner because I know I do technical analysis a little bit different than a lot of other technicians. So these purple lines are the same area on the chart for me. So this is, just think of this as one big fat support resistance line that runs from 74.42 up to 74.5650. So yesterday, that was where we were looking for potential, support resistance. So first test should be resistance. It's still getting in there. If you look at the way yesterday played out, we hit the 74.5650, basically that level, and then come back down and didn't even get a body of a candle above 74.42. Rejected back down. So now I'm still watching 73.95 to see if we can get any trades above, and then it's going to be a lot more bearish below 73. Let's just call it 47.48 right in there. So the bulls really need to drive it back up. Otherwise, you're still in a sequence down. Unlike the Russell, I would still play the NASDAQ to the downside on a sequence. One more time, it has had a better consolidation, better pattern, better technical setup, right? We come back up for the bears. These purple lines are what they needed to touch to get another sell-off. They did it once again, and they've rejected. So I wouldn't mind taking a sequence to the downside on the NASDAQ. Let's look at the ES. So the ES, we talked about it yesterday, really between 28.84 and 28.88 over here. This is that similar range. I'm going to remove this so we can see the bars, but you can see how much time has been spent flirting with this little area over here. We have had trades above and trades below, but really you're looking at, between this 28.84 and the 28.88 right in here. So that's what's being flirted with right now. This, has a very similar picture to the NASDAQ. I would play the ES down again as well on a sequence down, and it has done its checks also to where it could flag and go lower. So I don't have it up on the screen right now, but the overnight volume for the ES is coming in right around 128,000 contracts right now. So it's on the average side. So there's not really any traders taking any positions, anything getting on. And we're really in a neutral stance to where yesterday was. So not a lot going on, not a lot of people to trade against this morning here. Let's look at crude and gold. So looking at gold, we're still just flirting below these resistance levels. This is going to be a stronger resistance level. I'm going to mark this up so we can clearly see this now. But this line, I'm going to go ahead and hide the profile for us. But this line coming in right at 1197.40, that's really going to be more of an important support resistance up to 1199.5. Again, this is all the same area. So as you're looking at it now, this should be resistance going above. If not, it's going to be excellent support if it can break above. I'm still going to play for resistance. So as we see this coming in, I really don't have anything technical below the 1188 right now. I'll go back and bring up some older fibs. But I believe this targets down to, if this breaks, right down to 1145. So you really have another $40 gold could drop in the next couple sessions if this low over here is taken out. So keep in mind that as we get complacent with narrow trading ranges, that there's probably another $30 to $40 down below where we're currently trading if this low doesn't hold. Okay, for crude, we're still sitting here flirting right around this $75 mark. I've got it in at 74.93. And really, what we were looking at yesterday, right? We had a couple different scenarios that the bulls needed to come back up and hold above 74.93 to be able to get to 75.96. They were unable to do that, right? So that's still on the table for today. We could actually just slide these boxes over and see if that's it. For the minor pullback, we were saying that if you only went down to 74.34 yesterday, that was much better in the longer term picture. So, no touch down to 73.67, no touch to 73.19. Remember that today, around 4:30 Eastern time, is a crude oil report. Because of the Monday holiday, there will be no report at 10:30 this week like we normally have for crude oil. It'll be tomorrow at 11. But until then, tonight, which will probably be a bigger play, right around 4:30 Eastern time, you are going to have the another crude oil report that will probably move crude. So what I'm going to be watching for is around that 4:30 report with crude this afternoon. And really looking for some entries. I would love to see crude either smack up to 75.96 and potentially look to get take a Nadex short for the next day below that area. And I would also like to see it on a slam. I would prefer that it come down close to 72.72. So we'll see a lot of consolidation here in the last week in this little range. I think you're going to, go outside of this range, and I think that really, just under 76 and just above 72.72, those are the edges that you want to play on that report. I hope these levels help. We'll see you in the trade room. I'm going to start another stream here in a second, just for the time between Jack and I for any questions and answers. So I hope this helped, and we'll see you in the next session just in a few minutes.